Hey everyone, Sky here to discuss The Hunt for Red October, starring Sean Connery, Alec Baldwin, Joss Ackland, Scott Glenn, Tim Curry, James Earl Jones, Sam Neill, Courtney Vance, Richard Jordan, and Peter Firth, directed by John McTiernan. The same John McTiernan who directed the first Die Hard, which I'll get to later this year. Now, what is my history with this movie? Well, I've seen it before. I just don't remember following it very well. Did I like it? Let's see if the show will tell you. In November 1984, the Soviet Union's Captain Marco Ramius, played by Sean Connery, and his colleague Vasil Borodin, yeah, I think I'm saying it right, played by Sam Neill, stands in the cold and as he's in charge of a submarine called the Red October, while they're on an area filled with ice, which is pretty looking. We also meet Jack Ryan, played by Alec Baldwin, as he's about to go on a business trip to Washington, D.C., Virginia. It meets two men taking him to meet Admiral Greer, played by James Earl Jones, as Jack gives pictures of the Red October to Admiral Greer. And he wants to share the pictures to Skip Jones as he's going to meet him in 10 minutes. And the next scene, we meet Seaman Jones, aka Jonesy, played by Courtney Vance, tutors a young seaman on the signal algorithmic processing system as and passes a whale, that interrupts as a new contact signal, and Jones reports to Con CONN Captain Commander Bart Mansuso. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Played by Scott Glenn, as we move on back to the Red October, where Ramius tells political officer Putin, played by Peter Firth, that it is time to open the orders while Putin is in the captain's cabin as Ramius kills Putin because of his suspicious behavior. Orders from the political officer. And the characters are good, particularly Sean Connery, Alec Baldwin, and even James Earl Jones. Characters are worth watching in this movie. Jack visits Skip at the large bay housing and shows him the photos, and we go back to Ramius as he gets Dr. Let me see if I'm saying this right. Yevgeny Petrov, played by Tim Curry, has a suspicious feeling about one of the two keys is taken by someone else, while Ramius has one of the keys, and he keeps the second one without a political officer, as Ramius orders a course toward 250, and the sonar officer reports a contact with the Los Angeles submarine as their singing being heard, as Ramius lets them enjoy the moment. And I enjoy the scenes in the Red October more than the Jack Ryan story. As to me, Sean Connery stole the show, as the plot was a little hard to understand, in my opinion, as there's times I was bored, and this movie is 2 hours and 15 minutes long. Jack has a briefing with Greer and Jeffrey Pell, played by Richard Jordan, about Ramius' history, and as they lose contact with the Red October and they realize they have a madman running the Red October, as Jack realizes he knows Ramius a while back and is sent off to prove his theory correct and make contact with Ramius and capture the Red October while disguising the operation as an inspection, which is an interesting theory that Jack has to say to Pelt. The crew of the Red October have dinner and discuss Ramius' reason of becoming the madman he is in this movie. And despite that, I like Sean Connery in this movie because he's not worried about informing Moscow, but encountering an American buckaroo, as he wants to leave Russia and come to the United States of America. While Jack is flying a bumpy airplane as it touches down on the flight deck and meets Josh Painter, and as Jack apologizes for the uniform, as Painter, he'll be out for a few days, or tells Painter that he'll be out for a few days, and the undersea scenes are well shot as this movie is well made and the movie looks good. Don't get me wrong. Some torpedoes are fired at the Red October and goes after the submarine, and they're still alive, and Jack knows how to connect with the Red October as their defection is risking a big war as the American ships go after him, and Jack goes in a helicopter together to the USS Dallas as Jonesy hears the Red October and the Caterpillar is working, and the USS Dallas contacts the Red October as the Red October can't hear them. And this scene felt intense for pretty good reasons, as the USS Dallas boards the as Jack boards the USS Dallas, as they're pissed at Jack for arriving while the storm is all over there, and Jack cuts the rope off the helicopter and gets in the USS Dallas, and the Russians want the US to sink the Red October so it isn't able to defect and allow the Red October to enter the US. Jack wants to get in the Red October, and this 30 minutes is pretty intense at least. Ramius tells Jack with others aboard the Red October as the lights were turning on and off back and forth, and the Soviets don't know what to do. And they talk while a torpedo has been shot by another Russian submarine who attacks the Americans, and the Red October and Jack drives towards the torpedo, so the torpedo passes by the Red October, and the torpedo did look good for its time in 1990, as the movie did win the Best of Sound Editing, I think, Oscar, and Borodin is shot, and Ramius is joined by Jack to go after the guys sabotaging the Red October, and Ramius is shot in the arm, and Jack goes after him, and Jack shoots him and brings Ramius back alive, and the second Russian submarine shoots itself, and the other members of the Russian submarine think it's the Red October, which is a good fooled you moment. And the Red October get to America thanks to Jack as he sleeps on the airplane with the teddy bear right next to him for his daughter for Christmas, and the climax worked rather pretty well. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 6.5 out of 10. The movie works well as it was well made, but I think this is a good movie, not a great movie by all means. And I like the performances by Sean Connery, Alec Baldwin, and James Earl Jones. But the reason I gave it the rating I did, as there were times I got bored with this movie as I didn't get the plot. But it's a good time at the movies, I guess, if you want to turn off your brain. I guess as it's a good movie, not a great movie. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me. And next time I will be back with Patriot Games. And until next time, time to put down the I'm with the CIA, Jack.